Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Athens, Greece for Reason to Resist on June 3rd, 2026. Today, I'm going to update you on a dramatic escalation that has occurred in the criminal war of the United States and Israel on Iran. We're going to focus in particular on what is clearly a disproportionate response by the military forces of the Islamic Republic to yet another provocation by the United States military in the Strait of Hormuz, and particularly involving Qeshm Island, the largest island in the Persian Gulf, and a strategically situated island in the Strait of Hormuz. Before I get into it, please remember to like and share this video if you find it to be informative. And we just went over 178,000 subscribers today. We're on our way to 200,000, which is our goal for the end of the summer. Which will be the 2-year anniversary of Reason to Resist. So if you're not already a subscriber, please become one and help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic resistance journalism. And also, please, if you're interested in helping us to expand our on-the-ground coverage from conflict zones, the crime scenes of Western governments, please consider buying some Reason to Resist merchandise. I'm in fact heading to Lebanon tomorrow, and will be there for 6 days to cover the ongoing war in Lebanon, and these purchases of merchandise can help us to continue to do that on-the-ground reporting, which is not something you see a great deal of in the alternative media because of financial constraints, and it's something that we would like to do more and more of in the days ahead. So with all of that, let's get into it. I'm going to begin with a helpful summary of the day's events by Dropsite News and by Trita Parsi. Let's start with Dropsite News. They reported earlier today that the Iranian Foreign Ministry had condemned U.S. strikes on an Iranian tanker and the Qeshm intelligence facility. Iran's Foreign Ministry issued a formal condemnation of U.S. military strikes on an Iranian oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz and an intelligence facility on Qeshm Island in the early hours of Wednesday, June 3rd, calling the actions a violation of international law and the UN Charter Article 2. And the ministry said that it held Kuwait and Bahrain's ruling governments directly and openly responsible for the previous night's attacks, accusing them of allowing their territory and facilities to be used as launching pads for aggression against Iran. And it issued a warning to all countries permitting the aggressors to use their land, sea, or air to support the military operations against the Islamic Republic. Iran said it will exercise its inherent right of self-defense to protect its territorial integrity, and indeed, that is precisely what it did. Now, these statements by the ministry only referred to Kuwait and Bahrain, but as Trita Parsi noted, the response didn't only include military bases and potentially the airport in Kuwait in the retaliatory attacks. Here, Trita outlines a much broader campaign of deterrence and retaliation. He says that the Tehran struck the Kuwait International Airport, as well as a U.S. base in Kuwait, Ali Al Salam. I'm going to come back to the Kuwait airport in a moment. It struck also the Fifth Fleet facilities in Bahrain, full extent of damage unknown. It struck Jordan, full extent of damage unknown. Iran also struck northern Iraq, where there are Kurdish forces working with the Israelis and the Americans, apparently, to prepare for some kind of an operation against Iran, or at least potentially to engage in such an operation. And it struck also the Mossad operation masquerading as a country, the United Arab Emirates, again, full extent of damage unknown. And finally, it struck even the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, full extent of damage unknown. So it basically, presented to the Americans a smorgasbord of damaged military bases as a response to yet another provocation by the United States in the Strait of Hormuz. For its part, Kuwait said that there was quite a bit of incoming activity from Iran. It put out a statement this morning, or at some point during the day, stating that it had to deal with 13 ballistic missiles, 17 UAVs, 15 cruise missiles. So this was, if they're telling the truth, even if it's just half as many as that, This would be, I think, quite clearly and by a wide margin, the largest attack on a vassal of the United States since the ceasefire went into effect in the first half of April, approximately 2 months ago. So this was, by any measure, a retaliation that was well out of proportion to the strikes that the United States carried out last night. Now, there has been some satellite imagery that has been published, which appears to show damage. There are a number of images, but I'm just going to show you this one. The bottom shows the condition of the the U.S. military base in Kuwait before the attack. And you'll see the red circle. There's a building there which appears to be intact. And then in the upper image, there's a red circle in the same position, which shows what is more or less a black hole. And this by EGY OSINT is identified as a drone or aircraft shelter. I think that the reason why the image above is blurred is because these satellite imaging companies are not permitted to publish pursuant to some requirements that have been imposed upon them by the U.S. government. They're permitted to publish clear images without until a certain delay has been fulfilled. And I think that this is a requirement that was imposed on these companies for the purpose of keeping the public in the dark, or at least in a state of uncertainty as to exactly how much damage the U.S. military bases in the region are suffering. In any case, as I say, there are other satellite images which show further damage to this U.S. military base in Kuwait. Now, this brings me back to the question of the airport in Kuwait. It does indeed appear that it suffered very substantial damage. Nobody seems to be denying that. And here's one image of the damage to the terminal at the Kuwaiti airport. By any stretch of imagination, that's quite significant damage. And here's another image. And there are several others that have been published, but I'm just going to show you two in the interest of time. You can see that a large portion of the roof has been collapsed, and the interior of the terminal has suffered extensive damage. That terminal is not likely to be in operation, or at least fully in operation, for quite some time, I would imagine. Now, for the record, the Iranian military denied that it struck this airport. The spokesperson, or a spokesperson of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said that Iran's investigation and research on the hit of the passenger terminal in Kuwait shows that the IRGC Air Force did not fire any shots at this target, and the destruction of the passenger terminal of the Kuwait airport was caused by the error of the American Patriot systems, which landed on this terminal after failing to intercept the Iranian missiles. Now, there is, in fact, a video circulating of a failed interception, and here it is. So let's watch that again. At the beginning, you'll see the missile going upward, suggesting it was fired from the ground, and then doing an abrupt U-turn in the air, and then coming down and striking something on the ground. It's going up, and now it turns around. Now, I'm not able to confirm that what that interceptor, that errant interceptor missile struck was in fact the airport, but there at least is some evidence to support the Iranian military's account of what happened. And I'm going to have something more to say about this dispute, whether in fact Iran struck the airport or didn't, in just a second. But I also want to share with you before then a couple of other videos. The Iranian military published videos of its missile launches towards Kuwait. And you'll see there that these were multiple missile launches, multiple drone launches, and this lends credence to the figures that were given by the Kuwaiti military as to the number of incoming projectiles from Iran. And there was also another video. This, I understand, shows a missile launch for Bahrain. And let's show that to you again. You'll see that there is not, at least in evidence in this video, any air defense missiles coming up from the ground towards the incoming ballistic missile, and it doesn't seem to make impact on the ground and to have been a successful strike. Let's watch it again. Now, as has been widely reported during the course of this so-called ceasefire, the United States has moved quite a bit of military materiel and military personnel into the Persian Gulf, and a large number of U.S. soldiers are believed to be stationed at these bases in Kuwait, based on not only what we've seen in the last 24 to 48 hours. Let's recall that this isn't the first strike on Kuwaiti or U.S. military bases in Kuwait during the past few days. There was another one, which was a retaliation to U.S. Provocations in the Strait of Hormuz. And CENTCOM said that attack had been successfully thwarted, but then Bloomberg issued a report, as we've previously talked about on this program, saying that in fact significant damage was done to the military base in Kuwait. An MQ-9 Reaper drone had been destroyed, and another one had been seriously damaged, and several U.S. military personnel had been injured. And there's just a whole series of debacles that have taken place in Kuwait during the course of this war. You know, U.S. Warplanes being shot down allegedly by a Kuwaiti pilot. You know, there have been many satellite images showing extensive damage done to the U.S. military facilities in Kuwait. So if, in fact, there are a large number of U.S. military personnel situated there now, they are literally sitting ducks because, as we've seen, the air defenses of Kuwait are quite porous, hardly up to the task, and it is crystal clear, as just from today's actions. I mean, all of those missiles and drones that were fired at all of these various bases shows that Iran has retained a very considerable arsenal, which is consistent with what the U.S. corporate media have been reporting in recent days. So, you know, for those America Firsters out there who are wondering what the hell Donald Trump is doing, what you received today and during the course of the entire week is a demonstration of the extent to which the lunatic in the White House is putting U.S. lives at risk needlessly in the Persian Gulf for a war that has already been lost. Now, I just want to come back to the question of the airport attack. Although I think there is credible evidence to suggest that the Iranians did not strike the airport, didn't intend to strike it, and did not in fact strike it, and that it was an errant Patriot missile fired by Kuwait's hapless air defense crews. Let's assume for the sake of argument that in fact they did intend to strike it, and or they didn't, but they made a mistake. Well, I want to remind you that there is ample evidence that the U.S. military uses civilian airports for military purposes. We've seen many images coming out of Ben Gurion Airport over the last 2.5 months of U.S. military refueling aircraft and U.S. military transport aircraft at Ben Gurion Airport, huge numbers of them. People who have been landing there have been videotaping them and publishing the videos. So it's not just Ben Gurion, by the way. I myself saw this with my own eyes 6 weeks ago, as I reported on this channel, when I went to the Suda Bay military base in Crete, which is used jointly by the Greek military and the NATO and principally the United States. There is an airport on or near the Suda Bay military base, which is a civilian airport. It's the Hanya International Airport. And I flew out of that airport after reporting on the ground about what was going on at Suda Bay. And I saw numerous U.S. military transport planes, not only on the tarmac, but arriving and departing while I was waiting for my flight to depart. And here is a brief video of one of the aircraft that I saw taking off. So again, you can see under the cockpit, it says U.S. Air Force. This was the same runway that is being used by the commercial aircraft at Hanya International Airport. So there's no reason to think that the U.S. doesn't employ these practices throughout West Asia, and it may well be that the Kuwait airport also has a military function. And in fact, the New York Times today wrote an article or published an article in which it said that in the past it was known that the Kuwait airport had been used by the United States for military purposes, but it was unclear whether that continued to be the case. So it may well be that Iran had a justification for striking this airport if indeed that is what it attempted to do. But as I say, they're denying it, and there's credible evidence to back up their denial. Now, I'd like to talk to you next, before I close out this report, about statements made by the Iranian foreign minister, which I think suggests that the game has changed very clearly. The words of the foreign minister match the disproportionate response that we have seen today. So today he was reported to have said, first of all, we've made it clear to all interested parties that the attack on Beirut is a clear aggression and we will not remain silent in the face of it. I think you can take it from this statement and other statements the Iranian government have made in recent days that today's robust response to the U.S. provocation was also a response to Israel's relentless, criminal, sadistic violations of the ceasefire since it came into effect in April of this year. He continued and said any attack on Beirut would have heavy consequences and lead to a full resumption of the war. Any attack, I think based on what we saw today, this is a threat that sensible people will take seriously. All it will take is another bombing of Beirut. And as I said, I'm going to be there tomorrow. So I'll be there to cover it for you if in fact it happens. And let us hope that it does not only for the people of Beirut, but because the entire region is potentially go up in flames if the Israelis and the Americans cross that red line. And then the foreign minister continued and said, at the moment when Israel threatened to attack the suburbs of Beirut, we took a decisive position and the Iranian armed forces were put on a full alert for counterattack. And he went on and said, there's no tangible progress in the negotiation process. If Israel continues to attack Beirut, our armed forces are fully prepared to resume the war and targets inside Israel. Communication with the Americans has not been cut off, and messages have been exchanged regarding the need to stop the aggression against Beirut, but no tangible progress has been made in the negotiation process. So he seems to be saying here, yes, there's communication indirectly through mediators, but it's all about stopping the attacks on Lebanon, and it's not about resolving the many issues between the United States and Iran with respect to which they remain miles apart. He then says, returning to the negotiating table is conditional on securing the rights of the Iranian people, ending the war in Lebanon, and stopping tensions in the region. In the last 40 days, the Americans have well touched the strength and capability of Iran in this war. And a couple of other important points before I close out this report. The Hormuz tracker reveals that during the past 24 hours, 10 ships are transiting currently and have transited, and the normal daily average, according to the Hormuz tracker, is 60. My understanding, I'm not sure what period of time they're referring to when they say daily normal average. My understanding is that the number that were transiting through the strait prior to the war was in the range of 160 or so. But in any case, they say that the 10 ships is 16.7% of normal. A couple of other points about the Hormuz tracker today. There's 450 vessels waiting. 200 are tankers, 100 are bulk carriers, and 150 are other. The war risk insurance, the risk premium is extreme. The normal rate is 0.15%. The war risk premium is 4%. The increase is a 26.7 multiple of the normal. And finally, one other thing I wanted to point out here, this is in the center of the page in the bottom row. It says daily throughput, DWT, which is deadweight tons, 1.7 million, with an average of 10.3 million. So that's 16.5% of the normal rate. Therefore, it is quite clear that the level of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, although significant, is a fraction of what it normally is and is nowhere near close enough to alleviate the economic crisis into which we are descending. And one other point I want to make about the situation in the Strait of Hormuz is the price of oil went up today. I checked just before I started this report, and you'll see that as of that moment, the price of Brent crude had gone up 2.02%, or at $1.94, and it's currently trading at almost $98 per barrel. It was down about $91, $92 before the Trump regime provoked this latest round of escalation. And I don't want to be remiss in on the question of Lebanon. It behooves me to point out that the Israelis murdered yet another medic today. They are systematically assassinating medics in South Lebanon, while the West does and says absolutely nothing. It complains incessantly, Western governments, about Iran's self-defense measures, its retaliation to provocations and violations of the ceasefire by Israel and the United States, but is doing nothing and saying nothing, not even rhetorically defending the rights of these emergency workers, true heroes by any measure. And this particular victim, he was the leader of a civil defense team in the town of Shikhur. His name was Hassan Ali Mohammed. He ascended to martyrdom after succumbing to the wounds he sustained following an Israeli drone strike targeting an ambulance. So they actually targeted yet another ambulance belonging to the Al Risala Center in the town of Maurub in the Sur district. Now, at the same time, the Israelis are paying heavily for their criminality. Here is another video published by the Lebanese resistance. This one, notably, shows the use of thermal imaging to target Israeli terrorists in South Lebanon. This is Dimitri Lascaris signing off from Athens, Greece on June 3rd, 2026.